Hello, my name is Mark Chun. I'm an associate professor and the director of applied research at Pepperdine University. This morning we're very fortunate to have the opportunity to talk to Mr. Harvey Koeppel, who is the executive director for the Center for CIO Leadership. Harvey has done a lot of really great work on the CIO, Chief Information Officer, and the roles, responsibilities that make up a good CIO in today's business environment. So, Harvey, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mark. It's great to be here.
My first question for you is, can you describe the attributes or the roles of CIOs that make successful CIOs today?
Sure. This, of course, is based on research that we've done and extensive conversations that we have with CIOs every day, literally. And what we're finding is the more successful CIOs are ones that are really engaged with their business. Ones that not only have a seat at the table, but also a voice at the table.
Right.
Ones that understand business strategy, can contribute to business strategy, can speak the language of their business partners,
okay.
And then at the same time turn around and talk to their IT staffs, their IT departments, and be able to really translate and speak both languages in a way, understand business strategy, translate that into technology strategy, and then be leaders of those technology programs across the enterprise.
Okay. In your presentation, you talk about one of the attributes that the CIO needs to have is a business acumen.
Absolutely.
And how is this different from other C-level managers or executives in the corporation?
In many ways, it's not. In many ways, it's very consistent and very complementary with the other C-level executives. In effect, the way we look at it at the center is each C-level executive needs to have a certain amount of understanding and acumen, to use your word, with respect to each of the C-level functions. So as a CIO, for example, it's very important that that individual understand the language of finance, the language of marketing, the language of the CEO as examples. Similarly, the HR executive needs to understand about finance, needs to understand about IT, as do the rest of the executives. That said, of course, each of those C-level executives then brings a particular depth. So the CIO brings the depth in IT, the CFO brings the depth in finance, and so forth. But in order to have the most effective conversation about the business strategy and how to drive the goals and objectives of the enterprise forward, they need to be able to speak a common language, and that needs to be the common language of the business.
Do CIOs here in the United States, are they different than CIOs internationally? And how are they similar? How are they different?
Great questions. What we're seeing is really not a one-size-fits-all kind of model here, but the trends that do emerge, I think, are highly driven by a characteristic around what I would characterize as the developed economies versus the growth markets. Okay? In the developed economies, many enterprises have grown over many, many years, 50, 60, 100 years, are largely supported by huge investments in infrastructure and information technology, what we also refer to as legacy systems.
Right.
Therefore, oftentimes a good part of not only the budget, but their management attention and focus goes to essentially keeping the lights on, and of course always top of mind is reducing expense. When we look at the growth markets as the counterpoint to that, what we see is a slightly different opportunity and therefore a different set of skills that start to come to the fore. Best described as, since many of those companies have only been around for 10 years or 20 years, or in many cases less, they don't have 50 years worth of legacy applications. They're not worried about modernizing or putting web front ends or building portals on top of mainframe applications. They're starting out with web. They're starting out leveraging broadband. They're starting out leveraging mobile technologies. So again, a very different set of concerns driven really by the maturity or the length of time or the economic conditions of the local market.
I'm hearing you say a lot of that the CIO has to be both good in the business environment and also good technically.
Absolutely.
Can you talk to me, are there any type of core competencies that the CIO needs to have
Sure.
in his or her portfolio to make a successful CIO?
Sure. Actually, based again on research that we've done, what we have learned is the factors that seem to distinguish the successful CIOs tend to be those that are more supportive of the business. Another way to describe it would be what used to be considered the softer skills.
Right.
So it's things like leadership, things like understanding business strategy and process, innovation and growth, organization and talent management. You'll notice what is conspicuously missing from that list are things like infrastructure,
Correct.
or architecture, or middleware, or database.
Right.
From the center's perspective, we see those things as kind of table stakes. Chances are you didn't get to be a CIO if you didn't have a certain level of mastery in those topics, or you had a team or a staff that could support that. But what we're now seeing, in order to take the role to the next level, to really be a true enterprise leader, one needs to be able to acquire and master these newer skills.
Okay. Looking forward, what are some of the challenges or some of the opportunities that CIOs can expect to face in the near future?
Many, many. I think some of these have been traditional, and some of these I think have really been impacted by the global economic conditions of the last couple of years. So there's always expense pressure. I mean, by definition, the role of a technology leader has always been, how do we do more for less? Right? In finance terms, how do we cut the budget 30%?
Better, faster, cheaper.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that part of it, I think, has been pretty consistent, and frankly, given the challenges that the economy has posed over the last few years, if anything, that set of challenges has become more and more significant. On top of that, however, the other trend we're seeing, again, enabled by things like ubiquitous broadband and mobile technology and such, what we're seeing, and this is really from the CEO perspective, from the business perspective, much more focus on the customer, much more focus on acquiring and developing skills to create third-party relationships, whether it be with supply chain partners or customers. Again, the whole notion of business analytics as a core competency in order to be able to best manage those customer relationships, whether it be about retention of existing customers or acquiring new customers or establishing a new market for your enterprise in a new geography. All of these things are now, frankly, being demanded by CEOs and boards of directors that are areas that are in many cases new to many CIOs, and these are some very interesting challenges that people in this role really need to step up to.
Excellent. Mr. Harvey Koeppel, Executive Director for the Center for CIO Leadership. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Mark. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.